Madam Presiding Member, I'll be at 10 o'clock.
Thank you very much, Chris. Good morning, everyone. Before we start the meeting proper, I'd like to ask everyone to stand for a minute's silence with the sad news of former Councillor Alan Jones, the former Canterbury Councillor and Mayor, and our thoughts and prayers are with his family at this moment in time. Thank you. Thank you. Bore da, croeso. Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to this hybrid meeting of Council this morning. The Council meeting is being broadcast live over the internet and will be available to be viewed online and now and in the future. We welcome the use of Welsh language at meetings. I've had no request for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Members in the chamber, please be aware that we're all on camera and you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking. And please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Members participating remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you wish to speak. Please remember to keep your microphone muted when you are not talking. May I remind members, as per statutory guidance made under Section 4 of the Local Government Wales Measure 2011 and our formally adopted hybrid meeting policy, any member attending a meeting remotely must be able to be seen and heard by members and officers who are attending the meeting, as well as by members of the public viewing the meeting. So can you all please use your cameras for the duration of the meeting, please? Moving on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, attendance. Democratic Services will be making a note of members' attendance in the meeting, but should you lose connection, could you possibly leave a comment in the chat bar on your return to ensure that this is picked up? Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Dominique, have we any apologies, please?
I've had apologies from Councillors Norma Parish and Jason O'Connell.
Thank you. Agenda, are there any other apologies from the floor?
Fiona Cross, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item 3, which is the declarations of interest. Stella Harris, Monitoring Officer and Assistant Chief Legal Officer. Have you any advice for members, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I'm not aware of any interest to declare, but it's just advice to members that if they ask a question about a specific matter in any of the reports, then during the meeting, then members can consider whether they have an interest to declare at that time. Also, just to make Council aware that Andrew Lovegrove, the Strategic Director of Resources, will be leaving the meeting when the report relating to the Section 151 handover will be discussed, and that's at item number 14. Thank you, Madam Presiding Member.
Thank you, Della. Takes us to agenda item 4, the confirmation of the Council minutes on the 20th. Sorry.
Sorry, Madam Presiding Member. Just to say that the minutes don't reflect my attendance. I attended virtually at that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. You jumped in before I actually asked the question. So, members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. And we have Councillor Morgan's attendance.
Apologies, Madam Presiding Member. We've got Councillor Jason O'Connell online with his hand up.
Councillor Jason O'Connell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to let you know, I am online. I realised I was edging my bets a little bit with apologies, so just to let the record show I am here.
Thank you, Councillor Connell. They noted. Any other comments on the minutes? I'll take those as approved then. Thank you. Agenda item 5, update on actions. Members, the update on what has been done to implement our previous decisions start on page 47 of the agenda. Could you possibly indicate whether you have any questions or comments? No? Can I ask members then whether they agree to note the update on actions? All in agreement? Anyone against? Any abstentions? They are noted. Thank you. Agenda item 6 is receipt of petitions. There are no petitions today, so we'll move on to agenda item 7, to public question time. There are no public questions, so we'll move on to agenda item number 8, the announcements from the Leader and the Chief Executive. Leader, do you have any announcements, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. 5 announcements this morning. The first one, just to share the thoughts of Council on the passing of our former colleague and our great friend, Alan Jones. Alan was a good friend and a valued colleague, and above all, a fierce advocate of Blenavon and its people. A fellow rugby fan whom Alfred enjoyed conversations with, and I know he gave a great deal to Blenavon Rugby Football Club as well during his life. So our thoughts are with Leslie, their family and all of Alan's friends at this sad time. Secondly, I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of our staff out and about in this weather, from our street scene staff to refuse collection. It's a necessary reminder, I think, weather like this, that while as councillors we rightly push for service improvements and flag up issues when they arise, we should still all be hugely thankful for the difficult job that our staff do. A big thank you as well to residents for sorting their recycling to help make their job as easy as it can be in this difficult weather. Thirdly, I'd like to welcome the signing of the renewal of the Council's Armed Forces Covenants. Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Tannock and colleagues will now come down to the front of the hall to formally sign the document, after which I've got 2 more announcements, if that's okay, Presiding Member. And just to say, the covenant reads, "We, the undersigned, commit to honour the Armed Forces Covenant and support the Armed Forces community. We recognise the value of serving personnel, both regular and reservists, veterans and military families, contribute to the business of our country." That's signed on behalf of the Armed Forces and ourselves as the Council, so I can keep that safe. Okay, my next announcement is of a civic award for the hard work of the Blenavon Workmen's Hall volunteers. And if I can invite the Blenavon members down as well as the volunteers to present this award.
Well done, you do a fantastic job at the Workman's Hall. Thank you.
And that award both recognises fantastic dedication of the volunteers for helping keep that the hall going, and also is a symbol of our thanks to volunteers from around the borough who help in a similar way to keep our halls and community facilities running and of great value to the community. Lastly's announcements is that we've got a group of Gypsy Traveller children along with Lynn Robinson who I believe are going to give a presentation now about their lifestyle and the discrimination and challenges they've faced growing up. It was a pleasure to visit the unit down at Westmont School last week and to see the great work that they do and the fantastic contribution of the children. At this point, it should be pointed out that they've raised money for the Royal British Legion during the course of the Poppy Appeal this year. I wore my poppy that the children had made along to our remembrance services. So that's another great contribution that they've made to remembrance and to our community. So I'd like to invite you to give your presentation. And welcome, Lynn, and thank you for the fantastic work that you and your team do.
Good morning. I don't really need a microphone because I work in a school and I'm really quite loud. Thank you for the invitation. We're really proud of our Gypsy Traveller Youth Forum. We're depleted in numbers today. There's 2 Gypsy Traveller emergencies within families which actually knock the whole community. So we're smaller in numbers. So Fred is doubling up a little bit. We've had a Gypsy Traveller Youth Forum for 14 years, and Lynn has kindly come from Travelling Ahead, and they worked with us to develop it. And over the years, we've had lots of new members. We take it really seriously, so we have a proper voting system. It's all democratic. It's really important that we do it that way to make sure that our Gypsy Travellers are prepared to vote in the future. And so we have a polling station, we've got a polling booth. Our young people have had their manifestos and wrote their manifestos and presented that. I know that Philip was supported us and Councillor Sue Molson. So, yeah, it's a whole democratic experience. The presentation was put together by the young people, and it's their questions. I know they're a little shy, so I might have to read it for them. But the questions and answers were put together with them, and I can explain the background. So I'll ask Fred to come up first. We've got Fred Edwards. And the first question is, do boys stay in primary school? That question came from, I think that Councillor Sue Molson put something on Facebook after our Youth Forum meeting, didn't she, Fred? And there wasn't any pictures of boys on there. And quite a few people sort of made comments and said, oh, no, boys don't go to school. Well, they do, Fred, because you're in school. So a large number of boys go to school, they stay in school and gain qualifications. I'm very proud to say that over the years we've got hundreds, I don't know the exact figures because I haven't done my homework, but we've got hundreds of young people that's gained qualifications. And if our young people stay in school, at the moment they're gaining up to 10 qualifications per young person. Fred, you're in year 9, and you're lovely. Yeah, and do you want to tell him you're starting your qualifications now? Yeah? So what we do in Gypsy Traveller World, we tend to bank our qualifications early, just in case our young people do actually go away through the summer term to travel. So Fred has actually started some qualifications in equality and diversity, which will get him 2 B grades GCSEs. So we bank our qualifications in year 9, year 10, and then 11. So yes, boys do stay in school. If you look at the photographs, I'm a very proud mama when they came to pick up their qualifications. Yeah, and This year, only one young person went on to work with family, and 6 of our young people went on to either education or training. So we're very proud of that. So the next question is you, Jamie, I think. One is that lovely. Yeah, this is an urban myth. Do you want to show it around, Jamie? Do Gypsy Traveller children attend school? Well, they do. And we follow the same process as everybody else. There is some, we have to follow Welsh Assembly Government guidelines, and there is some differentiation in the codes, but our young people do actually attend school. And as it says on the board, we've got 160 Gypsy and Travellers in primary school and secondary, which we're really proud of. So, yeah, they do. And these guys, their attendance is outstanding, so we're really proud of that. We work really closely with the EWS service, and I then work very closely with the schools that our young people attend. Right, the next question. What have you got, Portia? Do all Gypsy Travellers live on caravan sites? Well, this one, we wanted to dispel some myths that there are over 50 families living on sites. We've got our Rose Cottage, Mountain View, which are private sites. We have a few sites that are privately owned, but then we've got 35 families living on Shepherd's Hill and Lower Shepherd's Hill, but also we've got families living within the settled community. So although our Gypsy Travellers might live in houses, they actually still follow the same culture and traditions as they would if they were living in a trailer, as I would call a trailer. We call it trailers, and we. So Fred lives on the site, Jamie and Portia lives in houses, and they would also go travelling in the summer as you would if you lived on a Gypsy Traveller site. They often got trailers, and they would still do those traditions. Isn't that right, Portia? Yeah. Right, the next question. Fred, you ready for this? This question, do Gypsy and Travellers still experience discrimination? This question came directly from the Youth Forum and the Youth Forum elections, because some of the girls particularly felt that they had experienced discrimination. Fred hasn't, neither has Jamie, so it's individual. But sadly, one of my Year 9 pupils felt, and some of their parents, they're often followed in shops by security staff. That photograph directly came from a photograph in Stow Fair. So we go to Stow Fair with our families, and often the shops there are shut for essential maintenance. So they closed during that time where our Gypsy Traveller community are. So that photograph was live from last year, because you went, Fred, didn't you, to do the photography project. So, yeah, sadly, there is discrimination, and we face it every time that something's put on Facebook regarding the community that I serve. I get really nervous. I'm not going to lie to you. I get really nervous. I get upset. Our young people are outstanding. The community are a joy to work with. But every community has its struggles. So we want to dispel the discrimination. You know, our young people are outstanding young people. So we want to be role models, don't we, Fred? That's what we're working towards for the community, to dispel those myths. Would anybody like to have it? We can take some questions. Anybody want to take any questions, or is it still me? Lynn, do you want to speak?
I'd just like to say thank you to Lynn and Sue for all the amazing work they do at Westmont. And I've met the young people down there. They are amazing. And this is a lovely opportunity for Gypsies and Travellers to feel included, part of the democratic process. And it's also very important for everyone here to challenge discrimination whenever they hear it, because as elected members, everyone has a responsibility. And even as a member of society, we all have a responsibility to challenge discrimination whenever we hear it. So I'd like you all to support us to try and encourage these young people to not suffer what some of their parents have been through. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you. Has anybody got any questions?
Okay. On behalf of the Glenavon branch of the British Legion, we really want to thank you for all your fantastic efforts, and we really love coming down to see you on Remembrance Weekend, and we thank you and continue your good work, because it's a pleasure to work with you.
Oh, thank you. We've raised £200 this year through our poppies, so we're very proud. We had a lovely service last week, but thank you very much. Thank you.
Can I thank the Gypsy Traveller community and particularly the young people for coming to join us at Council this morning. We're very pleased to have you, and it's absolutely superb that you're able to stand and tell us your views. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rose.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd just like to say, especially to Fred, Jamie and Portia, thank you for coming in and talking with us. And to Lynn and to all of you, the outcomes you achieve are fantastic for our young people. And I think that's really, really inspiring. It's great to hear about the life you can lead, and less great, I guess, to hear about the challenges that you face. But I think you are fantastic role models. Just that one example of the money that you raise for the Legion, and as well as the example you set by staying in school and doing your best, even if you do take the mickey out of my football team. And just thank you very much for all that you do, and for the work that you do. Lynn, we're lucky to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ida, would you like to continue with your...
And last but not least, I'd love to mention the Pontypool documentary film, the first viewing of which is being shown on Friday at Woodlands Field Hall. Doors are open from 7 p.m. for a 7:30 start, and I know they're holding a raffle to raise money for Torvine Play. That documentary, I've not seen it yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing the story that it tells of people in and around Pontypool. So I think all are welcome to that showing. So that's 7 for 7:30 this Friday at Woodlands Field Hall. And that's the end of my announcements. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Thank you, Leader. Chief Executive, you're online this morning. Do you have anything to report?
Only to extend my apologies for not being present in the chamber today, and also just to let you know I'll need to leave the meeting at 11:30 a.m. But please be assured that Nigel is in the chamber and he'll be present throughout the meeting. He'll be taking over my duties during my absence in his role as Deputy CEO to ensure that everything proceeds smoothly in my absence.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Agenda item 9, we were due to have Superintendent Mike Richards attend, but obviously he's been held up, so we'll postpone that event and we'll go straight on to agenda item number 10, which is the annual governance statement, which starts on page 49 of your agenda. Gareth Harris, Monitoring Officer and Assistant Chief Legal Officer, could you deliver this report, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. The purpose of this report is to present to Council the annual governance statement for approval. It has been considered by the leadership team and the Governance and Audit Committee. The statement sets out the governance processes and arrangements that have been operating within the authority for the year 2023-4. Officers responsible for the various governance processes have contributed to the contents of the statement. I don't propose to go through the entire document, but will highlight some of the key updates for you. Paragraph 518 refers to the testing that has taken place in relation to the business continuity processes. Paragraph 5.7 refers to the introduction of cross-party scrutiny and focus groups, which assist with the delivery of projects. Paragraph 6.1 refers to the work of the Gwent Public Services Board and the decision to become a Marmot region. Paragraph 9.15 deals with the introduction of a corporate portfolio board to strengthen the governance of change activity. Paragraph 11 is the review of effectiveness, and the internal audit team continues to review the control environment of the Council, and this year the overall opinion has deteriorated from sound to reliable with scope for improvement. This was due to two factors. Firstly, the decline in the opinion of the core financial systems, including the HR system, and secondly, the number of opinions with a full or a substantial rating had decreased from 82% to 75%. However, there are no significant control issues that need to be reported in the statement, and there were no high priority recommendations identified in the work carried out. So the review of the effectiveness has, however, concluded that the arrangements are effective. So the recommendation in the report is for you to approve the annual governance statement for the year 2023-2024. Thank you, Madam Presiding Member.
Thank you, Dennis. Does anybody wish to speak on this report? No. Can I check? State that the recommendations start on page 49 of the report, and the recommendation at 5.1 states that the Council approves the annual governance statement referred to in the appendix. We're all happy to approve that report? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you, that's approved. Takes us to agenda item 11, the Statement of Accounts 23-24, which start on page 65 of the agenda. Robert Green, Head of Financial Services, could you deliver this report for us, please?
Good morning, thank you, Presiding Member. Morning, everyone. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Rob Green, the fairly new Head of Financial Services. So I'm going to take you through the report and its contents. And to make you aware that my colleague from Audit Wales, Alice King, has joined the call virtually and will also provide comment in a couple of minutes. So the purpose of the item today is to provide an update on the conclusion of the external audit process for the 23-24 Statement of Accounts. As a reminder, Council is required to approve the accounts for signature by the Section 151 officer and presiding member, and in addition, Council is also required to agree for the Section 151 officer and Chair of Governance and Audit Committee to sign a letter of representation, which then gets submitted to Audit Wales in order that they can certify the final accounts and conclude the audit process. So the papers provided, there's a very short cover report, which I'll talk through shortly, as well as 4 appendices, including the final accounts themselves, the external audit report, otherwise known as the ISA 260 report, the draft letter of representation, and also in addition the Treasury Management Outturn report, which Council is also required to approve today. So in terms of the cover report and general background to the process we've gone through, so I think it's important to note it's been quite a challenging year. This year, when taking into account changes in personnel, that's both on our side and also with Audit Wales, general resource challenges, the second year of new auditing standards, and the first year of using a new system for the flow of information between auditors and officers. So despite those challenges, the team, led by Sharon Coles, the Group Finance Officer, has worked extremely hard to get us to this point and ensure that the key deadlines were hit and ultimately a successful audit opinion received. We're also one of the first local authorities in Wales to reach this point of sign-off, despite a longer than anticipated process this year. And thanks also go to our Audit Wales colleagues for the way in which they've worked with us throughout the audit. In terms of where we are, so the external audit has substantially concluded. There is some work still ongoing, but this is only the very, very final checks, essentially ensuring that all the adjustments that we've agreed with Audit Wales have been appropriately reflected in our final accounts document. And then ultimately Audit Wales will need to close the audit file. A draft ISA 260 report has been issued, and that's, as I said earlier, that's appended to this report, and that states that an unqualified opinion, audit opinion is to be issued, and that's what we're ultimately aiming for. An unqualified audit opinion is a positive outcome, and that's what we're looking to achieve. Members will note within that report that there are some misstatements that have been identified as uncorrected. That's nothing to be concerned about, that's perfectly normal. Ultimately, those items are not material, so they don't affect the audit opinion, and they're things that we will resolve in readiness for the production of the 24-25 accounts. Also important to note, the Governance and Audit Committee have already received and considered the final accounts. They were content with the position reached, and therefore in agreement that the accounts should be placed before Council today for approval. It's important to highlight, and Alice will talk about this a little bit more now, that there have been some very minor, ultimately immaterial changes over the course of the last week identified, so after the point at which the papers for today's meeting were published. That was always a possibility. obviously with the audit not having been completely concluded at the time of publishing. However, these aren't anything to be concerned about. These changes are ultimately not material. They don't change the audit opinion being issued by Audit Wales. And they result to final checks around asset valuations and things like that, and the accounting transactions that fall off the back of those. They're ultimately not items that have any impact on the real resources available to the authority or the bottom line of the authority. So again, nothing to be concerned about. These are mainly accounting matters. And what it does mean is that there will be some very minor amendments to the final audit report in terms of which items are uncorrected and corrected, but critically ensuring that the level of uncorrected misstatements in aggregate remains under the authority's materiality threshold, thus retaining the unqualified audit opinion and ultimately allowing Council to provide approval for the accounts to then be certified by Audit Wales. So at that point, I'd just like to give Alice an opportunity to come in and provide a little bit further comment on that, and then I'll return then to talk about the Treasury Management Report.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm here today to give you an update on our audit progress, as Rob has explained. I won't be taking you through the whole ISA 260 report, as we've previously presented that to Governance and Audit Committee. But I did want to draw to your attention those minor changes that Rob has alluded to in his presentation to you. So I'll take you through those changes, and then I'm happy to take any questions if members have any. So we have now agreed the final amendments with the Council to the accounts following our audit findings. And to highlight the changes, there are two kind of key areas. So we have two previously reported uncorrected misstatements that the Council has since subsequently decided to correct. And these are those listed as 1.396 million and 822k, which are reported on page 164 of your report pack. So they are in relation to joint operations, and as I say, the Council has chosen now to correct those, so they will be changed to corrected misstatements in our revised ISA 260. We did then identify one further issue, which again Rob's alluded to when finalising our audit work, which resulted in one additional corrected misstatement and 3 additional uncorrected misstatements. And this is in relation to non-enhancing expenditure on assets incurred by the Council in the year, which had not been impaired as required. So the misstatements from this issue that remain uncorrected are not individually or cumulatively material, and there is no overall impact to the general fund as a result of these corrected or uncorrected misstatements that we have identified. So at this point in time, I'm happy to say that we can conclude that the total uncorrected misstatements remain cumulatively below that materiality level that we set. And following that final receipt of accounts that Rob has said we'll have to go through just for those final amendments to be adjusted. So on receipt of those, the Auditor General will still intend to give an unqualified opinion, which we have suggested in our ISA 260. So that's all I intended to update you on today, having gone through the full report previously. But as I said, I'm more than happy to take any questions on any of that.
Thank you, Alice. Any questions to Alice? The Leader.
I'd just like to say thank you to Alice, to Rob and to the team for their hard work during the year. The unqualified opinion isn't something we should just take for granted. It's the result of their hard work and their skill as well, and the speed with which we tend to get here compared to other organisations, I think is worthy of praise despite the challenges that have been outlined this year. I think it's easily forgotten how hugely complex both the services and the financial accountancy of the Council is. £350 million, managing a plethora of different services, much uncertainty during this year, and yet we still managed to come in with unqualified accounts. So big thank you to all of your work, and please pass that thanks on to the team.
Thank you, Leader. Rob?
Thank you, Leader, for that. I will pass that on. So just to conclude now, just talk very briefly about the Treasury Management Action Report. So in addition to the Statement of Accounts, this also requires approval by Council. A copy of this is at Appendix 4. I'm not going to talk through the report, and the main sort of scrutiny of that report is undertaken by Governance and Audit Committee, and that was undertaken during the summer. But in essence, the report provides an overview of our investment and borrowing activity during the financial year, and ultimately confirms compliance with prudential indicators that were agreed as part of the Treasury Management Strategy for 23-24. And fundamentally, it's a backward-looking report, and there are no major issues to kind of bring your attention to there. So I don't propose to say anything more on that.
Any questions for Rob on that report? No. Thank you very much, and thank you to the Audit Committee. Recommendations start on page 66 of the report, and it is recommended that the Council 23-24 Statement of Accounts be approved. The presiding member of Council be authorised to sign the Statement of Accounts for 23-24 alongside the Chief Financial Officer, and the Chair of Governance and Audit Committee be authorised to sign a letter of representation. All those in favour of those recommendations? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? That's approved. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Alice. That takes us to agenda item 12, Torfaen Education Service update, which starts on page 195 of the agenda. Jason O'Brien, Strategic Director, Children and Families, could you deliver this report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member, and good morning, members. Of course, it gives me great pleasure to be presenting this report to you today, which evidences a significant improvement the Council has made with regards to its education for Estyn to reach a determination that we're a local authority that no longer are in a category of requiring significant improvement. Estyn have taken part, or the local authority first were inspected by Estyn in March 2022, at which point that determination was there requiring significant improvement. And since that time, Estyn have carried out a number of monitoring visits within the local authority in order to evaluate our progress against the key recommendations. In reaching their determination, I think it's worth pointing out that Estyn commented that we had just crossed the line from out of significant improvement, but the work that we had done, or the work that the local authority and the council had done in moving its education services on within the local authority was significant enough that they would be cited as good practice examples within Estyn's annual report, so obviously we're exceptionally proud of that. What that also does, members, is it places us in an excellent position, I believe, in terms of the work we've done, not only to have a stable education service, but one that continues to strive for improvement and will achieve such. I'm indebted, I think, as a council, we're indebted to Estyn's approach, the collaborative approach with us throughout the process, and the supportive approach with us throughout that process. I would like to pay just particular reference to the education leadership team, which consists of Andrew Powells, Andy Rothwell, John Tushingham, Steve Tong, Claire Williams and Jess Gabriel, as well, of course, to all the other workers within the education service who've really led this service development forward. Like I say, it places us in a great position to be able to continue to strive towards continued improvement. The work, I would point out as well, couldn't have been achieved not just only with the services from within the education department, but across the Directorate and across the entire council. And as I'll end as I started, in that, it gives me great pleasure to have been able to present this report today.
Thank you, Jason. Councillor Clark, did you wish to say anything?
I was just about to turn and put my hand up. Thank you. I echo all that Jason said in that, and I've committed before to this council that we will continue to bring education reports to members so that you are aware and engaged with what happens in the education service. That could be through reports such as this to council, it could be through seminars, and it could be via the email I send with the newsletter, which is imminent. It should have been sent out to you last week, but I was poorly bad and really not in the mood to deal with computers, so that will be coming to you this week. We don't only report the good. I had the unhappy circumstance following the last election of bringing an extraordinary council meeting to explain why we went into special measures. I advised you at that time that you would all be part of this process, and I believe I've honoured that commitment. And as Jason said, we did scrape out of Eston. This was not, and I keep saying, a tick-boxing exercise. I think previously we've done all we've had to do to get out of Eston, and then Eston special measures, and then everything's tickety-boo, and we get on and carry on regardless. This is not the case now. As Jason alluded to, there is best practice demonstrated here that's written up by Eston. Other authorities are approaching us for advice. This is the starting point for the education service in Torfaen, and we will excel and continue to improve, whether it's under my watch or under anybody else's. We've set the footings and onwards and upwards. I share Jason's, though I would include Jason and the Chief Executives in the congratulations with the Education Service team. They really made the difference. I think we would have just been a tick-boxing exercise had it not been the individuals. It also has been the rock of our county plan, the plan giving every child the best opportunity forward. That was our focus in coming out of Eston. That is our focus as a county borough council. So I commend everybody who had anything to do with it, including you as councillors. This was a whole council approach. Council, the scrutiny committee, officers of all departments, the whole cabinet supported me. So this was a whole team approach, and the result was appropriate. And let's look forward to more improvement coming in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Leader.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I would like to echo those thanks to Jason, Andrew and officers across the Council, led by Stephen. It really has been a whole Council approach, and an approach I think we're mirroring in other areas as well, which is why it's encouraging to see this report. Also, I think it's testimony to the work of our staff in schools. I will mention Richard, because he wouldn't mention himself, but his leadership in this has been exemplary in the way that he's brought Council in and sought to lead in an inclusive way in this work. Also, Rose and her scrutiny members, the way they've engaged, the way they've responded to the extra openness that has been approached by the department, I think has been huge in adding that value. It all reaffirms my view that progress in areas like this isn't achieved by shoutiness or by slogans. It's achieved by relentless hard work and by teamwork. So I think that's a credit to everyone who's been part of that. Two particular areas I want to comment on. First is that openness from the department. They give us timely and very honest assessments of what's going on, right down to the meetings I have with them. When I sort of throw 50 questions in the direction of Jason or Andrew or whoever, they're always patient with me and answer my questions in a way that isn't just trying to gloss over issues, but is giving an honest feedback about the situation. I appreciate that, and I hope they know that my questions aren't because I don't trust them, but they're because I really want to drill down as much as I can into what's going on within our schools. Secondly is that use of data, that sort of self-evaluation and reflection, that sort of framework that I think we need to have. I think that's aided by the openness with which they approach it, but it's also aided by the forensic approach that people like Stephen have led in taking data forward, and Tom as well in the team that take that forward. That's really of value because it helps us to know the reality of the situation across the service better, and therefore both hold to account and drive improvements. I think the results from inspections in our schools, the progress we've made on attendance, all that feeds into the picture that's reflected in this report. And, you know, I really would recommend that members do take the time to read the full report because, as has been said, it's not just a report that ekes us out of special measures. It's a report that recognises huge improvements and seeks to, in fact, use us as best practice for other areas. And that's not been something that's achieved without a huge amount of hard work by the team. We recognise there's more to do. This isn't an end. This is just a milestone. As Richard has said, we're determined that that work will continue. We're not going to repeat mistakes that have been made elsewhere in the past. We will make sure that we continue that focus on performance And, very much this report forms the basis of our expectations for the future, our expectations for our young people moving forwards. Just to close, I'd like to give a big thank you to members, because members in this council have made the decision to invest in education in recent years, both in revenue terms over the last 5 or 6 years, and we've gone from a position where we were below average in Wales in terms of revenue funding of schools to one where we're near the top. And that's no coincidence that that's sort of brought about the improvements. So thank you, because I know that's not easy for members. Many of our services are more visible than our schools. People see them more easily out their front doors, particularly if they don't have children in their schools. But you've made the decision alongside us to back our schools, to invest in our schools. It's not been an easy time for our schools. It's not been an easy time for schools across the country having to face up to reducing real terms funding. But at least in Torvine schools, we've had a position where schools have had a fighting chance of setting a budget that can respond to their needs, if not do everything that they want to do. So thank you for that decision, because I recognise that's not been easy for members, because as with everything we invest in, there's an opportunity cost. Because we're in power, we don't have the luxury of being able to promise everything to everyone. We have to make our sums add up, and every pound we invest somewhere is a pound we can't invest somewhere else. So thank you for putting schools at the top of our priority list. That is appreciated by me as leader, and it also results in the kind of reports that we've seen here. So hard work, investment, teamwork, that's what results in reports like this, and it's worthy of saying thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to echo those words, and I'd like to put personal thanks to members of the Scrutiny Committee and our officers for all the work that they do to help us deal with scrutiny of the education. And congratulations. It's the start. It's the foot on the ladder. We haven't achieved excellence, but we're looking for it. Thank you very much. Members, any other comments on this? Councillor David Williams.
Yes, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Just to thank the Executive Member for his willingness to give updates on a regular basis. I think that's going to be very important, because we need to make sure that we as a whole council have the opportunity to both see and hear about what's being done and ask some of the difficult questions on times as well. So that commitment is welcome. I did note, for example, the comments within the Estin report about the fine work that has been done around those not in education, employment and training. So, there are some very commendable items within that report. So thank you, but we need to keep our scrutiny and our game up.
Any other comments? Thank you for that. The recommendations are on page 197 of your report. Can I ask members whether they agree with the recommendations? Can I ask anyone that they're against the recommendations? And any abstentions from that? That report is carried. Thank you very much for that. That takes us to agenda item 13, the delivery agreement of Torvine Replacement LDP, or Local Development Plan. The report starts on page 219 of your agenda, and Robert Murray, Principal Planner, and Gareth Beer, thank you. Could you deliver your report, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Following the decision of the Council to withdraw its initial replacement local development plan in 2023, the Council commenced work on preparing a new replacement local development plan with a revised time period of 22 to 37 in July 2023. The Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004 requires local authorities to produce a local development plan for their area, and to do this in accordance with an agreed delivery agreement. The delivery agreement is a succinct public statement that contains two key parts. The first is a timetable for preparing the plan, and secondly, a community involvement scheme setting out how and when stakeholders and the community can contribute to the plan preparation, development, monitoring and review. Due to Council's wishes to secure additional evidence for a number of key potential growth options, and also the need to undertake sub-regional collaboration following advice from Welsh Government, the original timetable for the preparation of the RLDP is no longer achievable, and a revised delivery agreement is required. This report recommends that the Council approves a revision to the Torvine RLDP delivery agreement 22-37 attached as Appendix 1 for submission to the Welsh Government for their approval after which preparation of the new plan can formally continue to preferred strategy phase in 2025. The key council dates for the RLDP going forward are now preferred strategy in October 2025, the deposit plan in October 26, submission to Welsh Government in January 2028, and a formal adoption in December 2028. The recommendations are detailed in Section 8, requesting Council approves the revised Torfaen Replacement Local Delivery Plan Delivery Agreement attached as Appendix 1 and submits to the approval for Welsh Ministers. And secondly, agrees to delegate any formal minor amendments or factual corrections of the revised Torfaen Replacement Local Development Plan Delivery Agreement to the team leader, planning policy and implementation prior to submission to Welsh Government. Subject to the recommendations being accepted and agreement by Welsh Ministers, work will continue on the Torfaen Replacement LDP in accordance with the revised approved delivery agreement. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Robert. Any comments or questions on the report? No. I'll take members to the recommendations which Robert's just read out on page 224, sorry. Can I ask members whether they agree with these recommendations, please? Are there any members against the recommendations? Are there any members abstaining? That report is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. This takes us to agenda item 14, which is the section 151 handover, which starts on page 253 of the agenda. Nigel Aurelius, Deputy Chief Executive, could you deliver the report for us, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. Hopefully a relatively straightforward report. I'm sure there's no one in the chamber that now doesn't realise I'm retiring with effect from the 31st of January. The authority needs to have in place an officer who's the designated 151 officer. I've held that role for close on 20 years. You have already appointed a Strategic Director of Resources, who is both a qualified accountant and a member of the CCA body, and this report just suggests that you appoint Andrew as your new Section 151 officer with an effective date of the 2nd of December 2024 to allow me to sign off all the statement of accounts and the pension fund accounts that you've all just approved. If you appoint Andrew, Andrew will become just the third Section 151 officer since Torfaen County Borough came into existence in 1996. My predecessor did close on 10 years, and I've done close on 20 years, and I think that stability has served Torfaen well. Nothing further to say. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Thank you. Nigel, we know you're with us for another 2 meetings yet, so we won't do the usual. We'll save that for January. So, members, do you have any questions for Nigel on this report? Leader?
Just to commend this report to Council, to welcome Andrew to his new position as from the 2nd of December, although he's already started with us, and just to comment without going into the thank yous for Nigel on that stability, which, as he said, really is remarkable. Over 30 years to just have 2 Section 151 officers shows the stability financially with which we operate, and that's appreciated.
Thank you. I remember when he took the job as well. Can I ask members whether they have any further comments or whether they agree with the recommendations which start on page 254? All those in favour? Any members against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. That report is carried, and we welcome Andrew Lovegrove formally into the 151 officer position on the 2nd of December. So thank you for that. Takes us to agenda item 15, which is the motions on notice. There are no motions on notice, so we'll move on to members' question time. There are 16 questions for today's meeting, and I refer to the sheet on the first question, which is Councillor Nick Haller.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I've been approached by some of the commoners to propose a speed restriction on highways passing over the registered commons in general within our World Heritage Site. One of the most dangerous areas of the roadways is the running between the cattle grid at Blenavon to the cattle grid at Garndaris by the Cordella Inn. As you might be aware, many sheep have been killed or injured recently, and several extreme serious road accidents have also occurred in this area. The concern is that both animal welfare and public safety is being compromised, and the frequency of accidents of late may have resulted in the increased recreational popularity of the Keeper's Pond, which in itself has created a public health and other issues. Many other commons which are situated in national parks or conservation areas across the UK have suitable speed limits restricted on them. My question, would TBC support such measures to decrease the speed limit to make the area and other areas of the common safer for all that use the areas, working alongside all parties to make this a reality? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Mandarogan, would you like to answer the question?
Thank you, Rose, and thank you for your question, Councillor Hawler. And can I assure you that Torvine Council is fully committed to supporting the safety of road users, local communities, commoners, livestock that contribute to maintaining the biodiversity of the scenic part of the borough. I'm sure you're aware that the route travels through Torvine and Monmouthshire. Our officers are in touch with their colleagues in Monmouthshire and are having discussions to review the situation and also to determine the risks to road users and livestock. Following their investigations, then any proposed interventions will of course then be the subject of a consultation process to gather the views from all affected parties, which will include yourselves, councillors from Monmouthshire, the commoners and the National Park. And then we can look at all options, but I will ensure that you are kept up to date on any decisions moving forward.
Thank you. Question 2, Councillor Ron Burnett.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Burnett. Our social workers, community support workers and family intervention workers receive a broad range of training that is both generic to their functions of social work and specified to their individual roles. All qualified social workers are professionally trained, and a requirement of employment is to be registered with Social Care Wales, which in turn requires evidence-based continuous professional development and training. Trauma-informed training can consist of many components, and within Torvine, we have embarked on a strengths-based approach to practice, which focuses on collaborative communication and promotes trauma-informed practice. The Gwent Attachment Service has delivered trauma-informed training to all teams within Children's Social Care. There are changes in personnel, so some personnel won't be trained, but they are prioritised for future training. There is currently a cohort that has just had the training, and those that haven't received it because of changes in personnel will be prioritised. We have revisited this training and continue to deliver it, as I said, with the cohort that's recently completed, and training of staff and continuous training, because items and matters do change. The training is in-depth and consists of 2 full-day sessions and 6 follow-up skill development sessions.
Yeah, thank you for that, Richard. As you say, ongoing personnel changing, and I will be keeping on to this one to find out how many have not been trained. I asked the question, could you find out who needs training at the moment, how many are not trained at the moment, because I have great reservations about it. But I will be continually monitoring the training of social workers as they come in. Okay?
In my executive briefing, there's many questions I raised, number of children looked after, etc. I will assure you that that will be one that I raise at all those meetings, so I'm aware of the situation with training and what's happening. And if the numbers stay the same over a period of time, I will be asking why hasn't the training been influenced, so I'll undertake to do that, Ron.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. You've withdrawn your question, so thank you. Thanks very much. Question 4 is Councillor Liam Coles to Councillor David Daniels. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Can the Executive Member provide an update as to what the Council has done over the last month to support the possibility of an alternative care provider taking over from Havard at the Arthur Jenkins Care Home in Blenavon on the 6th of December? Thank you.
Councillor Coles, Councillor Daniels.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks for the question, Councillor Kells. I've said it plenty before, but I really do appreciate the level of support and the advocacy you've had on this, as well as your colleagues in Blenavon. It's worth reminding members that when Havard told the Council that it intended to close Arthur Jenkins, we were obliged to trigger our home closure process. This is still the formal process that we need to follow. However, October's Council updated members that discussions were taking place between Havard and Spectrum about a potential transfer of the service. I warned that this process may take some time and was largely out of our control, as the final decisions rested with Havard, Spectrum and the Care Inspector at Wales. I also set out 2 elements which were in the Council's control, namely the lease assignment and accepting the company onto our framework. Because this is a lengthy process, I had initially requested that Havard extend their notice period beyond the 6th of December, but as I also explained, by that point, circumstances had progressed, and Havard had rightly raised concerns about the unacceptable level of distress that the ongoing uncertainty was causing to residents, and had therefore wished us to continue with the original timeline. This month, the Council has approved the assignment of the lease and has signed off the provider for our framework. But at this stage, the new provider has not yet been formally approved by Care Inspector at Wales. Discussions continue to be positive and CIW are moving at pace, but final decisions by CIW, Spectrum and Havard have not yet been made. Until a final decision is reached, we must continue following our formal home closure processes. We can't, it's just unacceptable to risk residents being left without care if Havard and Spectrum, the proposal was to fall through at the last minute. Council officers have worked exceptionally hard to deliver our actions quickly, and I want to pay tribute to them for the pace at which they've worked to support this. I want to end this by saying that if the home does transfer to Spectrum, then I hope that they will follow the advice of our officers and the direction travel for care in Torfaen. We believe the providers looking at more nursing care from the building, which would go looking at nursing care from the building, which would go some way towards improving sustainability for the future. And I'm keen to that discussions between CIW, Spectrum and Havard conclude positively soon. But I hope that they result in an offer to the community which is sustainable in the long term. I've added something to the end of my answer to pay tribute to Councillor Alan Jones. I know we paid tribute as a council earlier, but I think it's important to recognise that even when Alan was very unwell, he was still advocating on behalf of Arthur Jenkins and Blenavon. And I think it's a testament to his dedication to Blenavon that he was as involved as he was right till the end. So I just thought it was very important to kind of add that in at the end there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Daniels.
Sorry, can I just thank Councillor Daniels for that answer, and especially for mentioning former Councillor Jones. He was emailing me about this issue from his hospital bed often. Yeah, he certainly was committed to Blenavon up until the very end. Thank you very much for mentioning it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. Councillor Janet Jones, question 5.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. It's on the issue of the Arthur Jenkins home. So can I ask you, Councillor Daniels, can you please advise as to what lessons have been learned in relation to the handling of the proposed closure of the Arthur Jenkins home and Havard Care, bearing in mind that Havard Care do have 2 other care homes within our borough?
Councillor Daniels.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. I've resisted making this point over the past few months because I haven't really seen merit in raising it whilst we've all been relentlessly focusing on the right thing for Arthur Jenkins residents. But it needs to be said that the ongoing transfer process could have been explored before triggering the home closure process. This could have avoided the scramble to get everything done by the home closure date and could have provided greater certainty around the final outcome for residents and staff, as opposed to the ever-evolving picture that has unfolded these past few months. For me, this is an essential lesson for Havard to take on board. In future, we would expect to see the possibility of a transfer to an alternative provider explored before triggering the home closure process, and that we will be impressing this upon Havard. For our part, I'm confident that officers have decisively followed the right processes, have moved at an exceptional pace, and crucially have always had the best interests of our residents at the forefront of our mind in every decision we've taken, and that carries on as we speak. Going forward, we will continue to monitor other homes in the borough through our provider performance framework, and we will not hesitate to step in where we feel that providers are not performing to the high standards that we expect. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Janet Jones, question 6.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Now we have, fingers crossed, a positive outlook from Spectrum as a possible care providers for the Arthur Jenkins home. Could we have assurance that those residents who've already been moved, and provided they have the ability to cleanly make their own decisions, that they be allowed, if they wish, to return to the Arthur Jenkins home? And I had a phone call from someone last Wednesday asking this.
Councillor Daniels.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Yeah, I mean, I would fully expect that to be the case, and yeah, I mean, conversations are being had with those residents who have already moved. But I really need to reiterate that I still can't guarantee that the transfer will take place before the 6th of December. As I said, our care management teams will continue to engage with all residents, those who have moved to other care homes and those who currently remain at Arthur Jenkins throughout this difficult time. We'd encourage anyone who has the capacity to take decisions to still think very carefully about moving back to Arthur Jenkins. I know how much residents will want to move back, but we must remember that that the home will be operated by a different provider should the transfer be successful, and their experience may be very different coming back. The home may have different staff and different residents from those who were there before, and moving is not without its risks. I would encourage everyone who's considering to discuss this with their social worker before reaching a final decision on what is right for them.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Daniels.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Nick Hawler, question 7.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Should there be no further hitches to the transfer, that providers will everything be completed by the 6th of December? And would you agree, if the extension had been granted as requested, there would have been no need to put the residents and relatives and staff through the traumatic period that they have? Thank you.
Daniels.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Hawler. Yeah, as I've stated in my previous answer to Councillor Jones, I'm still unable. It's very frustrating, but I'm still unable to offer any guarantee that the transfer will take place by the 6th of December. And as I've said in previous council meetings, the remaining decision rests with Havard, Spectrum and CIW, Care Inspectorate Wales. For the council's part, we've made decisions within our gift and have done so at pace. And that said, I understand the most recent discussions have broadly been positive. The question of an extension is a complicated one because it involves a fair bit of supposition. As I stated in my reply to Councillor Jones's first question, the ideal scenario would have been for Havard to explore the transfer process before triggering the home closure process. This, I can say with a greater level of certainty, would have facilitated a much cleaner process, without the urgency a closure date presented. However, we've been put in this position, and I will say that everyone has pulled together to try and make a successful transfer happen despite this. As regards the extension, I mean, the most honest answer I can give is that I can't say with any level of certainty that I would like that this would have negated the trauma that residents, their loved ones and staff have been through. As you'll recall, we requested that the extension to provide a protective buffer for residents would be in place so that it would protect those residents from the collapse of the transfer. And that couldn't be made, that couldn't be granted by the provider. This was ultimately not agreed by Havard, but quite soon after, the responsible individual had flagged up concerns about the impact of the closure process on residents and the safety of the service that they were providing. And this then became the clear and substantive reason for resuming the home closure process and totally blew away any kind of intentions around an extension, quite honestly. Finally, I refer to my answer to Councillor Jones's questions about lessons learned. While I understand that the reasons for initiating the home closure process were understandable around sustainability, the transfer process could and should have been explored before doing so. We hope that this approach will be taken should these circumstances arise again.
Councillor Hall.
Yeah, collectively as ward members, we would sincerely like to thank the hard work that the team have done in processing the situation that was brought about when Havard gave notice to Torvine on the 3rd of September, terminating the lease. And Alf Jenkins, we all thank you sincerely, the whole team. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Horner. That takes us to question 8, Councillor David Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Morning, Councillor Clark. At the last full council, I asked about Cwmbran High being given the same standards as Crossy Ceiliog. The response did not address the clear disparity between the standards between Crossy Ceiliog and Cwmbran High, hence why I have brought it back to full council once again. Having watched the meeting back several times and not being satisfied with the response, I will repeat the question. Given that both Crossy Ceiliog and Cwmbran High schools are publicly funded and should provide equal opportunities for students, why has Cwmbran High been allowed to fall so far behind in terms of classroom standards, equipment and overall facilities? Can you provide specific data on a timeline for when Cwmbran High will receive the same level of resources and improvements as Crossy Ceiliog?
Councillor Clark.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Thomas. I believe the question has been answered both at last council by the leader in my absence and in July when you asked a question that had similar information in my answer. And I do generally disagree with your premise that students at Crossy Ceiliog and Cwmbran High School have different opportunities, and indeed I would extend that to secondary schools throughout the county borough. The fabric of the building differs throughout the borough, not just Cwmbran and Crossy Ceiliog, throughout the borough, but in line with the county plan, the service, as recognised by Estyn, works to ensure all learners reach their full potential. Under the old 21st Century Schools programme, before my tenure as executive member, Crossy Ceiliog was placed in a category needing a new build at the time. Fairwater, as it was then, was deemed not to be as dilapidated as Crossy Ceiliog and was in a lower banding. Similarly, the way Oakfield School was considered that it needed to be replaced and a brand new school at Llantarnam was built, Crossy Ceiliog Primary School remains as the 1950 school that it was. In fact, it's often like stepping back in time going there. Similarly, Pontywydd, similarly Llanrafan and other schools. On the creation of Cwmbran High School, substantive works were undertaken to accommodate the merger of Fairwater and Llantarnam School. And since then, a number of projects have been undertaken to improve the condition on site. I believe only 3, 4, 5 weeks, maybe time flies. You and I were both at the opening of the ALN and Community Suite at the school. A report will come to Council. I believe it's due for December, which is on sustainable schools, which is the successor to 21st Century Schools. This will indicate the new categorisation. I think you've had a glimpse of it in Scrutiny Committee, which you serve on. If I'm wrong, I apologise. And funding will then become available for those projects. That will be done on categorisation and a needs basis. So given that, I cannot give you a timeline without the funding and without that report that shows the category of all our schools and where they are and what they need.
Councillor David Thomas, are you satisfied with that answer?
Unfortunately, no, I'm not. And I'd like to be, but I'm not. I'm very passionate about what was promised to Llantarnam when the school was closed. So I would ask this question, if I may. Would the executive member agree with me that funding is ultimately about priorities? If education truly matters to this council, then the funding decisions should reflect that commitment. For example, considering this council has allocated £4 million to the British, does this not suggest that the British is being prioritised over the education of our school children?
I think the tail end of my answer gave you that. We do believe in priorities, and the sustainable schools that will be presented to the next council will show you the categorisations that our schools are in and the priority we have therein to undertake the remedial works that are needed done and the refurbishment that's needed doing. I think, as the leader alluded to in his remarks on Eston, I think we've got a proud record of what we've spent on schools within the borough and the new schools we've built, especially as I talk to my equivalents in other authorities throughout Wales. I would love to sit here and every area, it wouldn't be appropriate every ward, but every area has a brand new shiny school. But that doesn't mean that what goes on in the school will necessarily change. It's through the hard work of our teaching staff, the support staff, the education service that deliver for our children. I think I've referred to before, one of our highest achieving schools in the area is St Albans School, and we've all seen in the media, and I know firsthand from visiting the site, the condition of St Albans. It doesn't necessarily mean shiny, spanky schools, probably wrong expression, shiny, brand new schools deliver the best results. It's through the hard work of our teaching staff, support staff, and service. But I'm firmly committed to having education as a priority and the best facilities for our pupils.
Thank you. Councillor David Thomas, question 9, please.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. At the last full council, I asked a question where the relevance of officer communication came up in response to a question I asked. Could the executive member explain why officer communications between members is not as good as it could be, and why on many occasions members are having to chase officers on ward issues as their inquiries are going past the 10-day waiting period? Is there something happening members should know about so they can explain the long delays to unhappy constituents?
Councillor Peter Jones.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas, excuse my voice, for your question. I hope all members recognise the hard work that has been put into improving performance across the Council and the open and transparent approach being taken to ensure that we are accountable to all members and our public. I also hope it's recognised that Torfaen Council is always looking to learn and continue to develop. To provide some context in terms of the volume of work the Council receives, since July this year we have received 49,658 contacts through customer care, which generated 19,007 active service requests. Among these, there were over 1,380 members' inquiries, out of which 1,288% have been resolved, with 1,043 cases, 87% resolved within the 10-day service level agreement timeframe. Service managers from across the authority are working exceptionally hard to improve responses further, but it is acknowledged that sometimes service deadlines are missed and communications can break down. This can be due to various reasons, including staff absences, recruitment challenges, and the need for further service development and transformation. I am aware that a members' support working group has been established and is chaired by the Chief Executive. Heads of service from all council departments and nominated members from all political groups, including yourself as the nominated representative for the Reform Party, are represented. These meetings were in part established so that members' concerns could be directly raised and responded to by service leads. My understanding is that this group is generally well attended and is working well, having resolved several issues raised by members. For reassurance, I have asked the Chief Executive to include your concerns on the agenda for the next meeting for further discussions. I would like to assure all members that officers are working as hard as possible to continue to improve response times and communication.
Thank you. Councillor David Thomas, do you have a supplementary? Or is it
Yeah,
the
I
next
do,
question?
actually. I'm sorry, member. Thanks for the comprehensive answer to the question, Councillor Jones. I would like to ask if it was any way possible that I could spend 2 weeks within the members' inquiries team just to see just how difficult this job must be for them. Obviously, I may well be missing something and why they're going past the 10-day period, but I would like to spend at least 2 weeks of my time in that department, if that's possible. Maybe I could offer some suggestions whilst there.
I think the best way to take that suggestion forward, Councillor Thomas, is to raise it at the next meeting with the Chief Executive and your views and the views of the other members who represent all the Council and decide if that would be an appropriate way forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor David Thomas, question 10.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I read an article in the South Wales Argus with interest. Can the Council explain why it is relying on private care providers to operate a children's home in Torfaen, despite clear directives from Welsh Government against privatisation of essential services for vulnerable children? This choice appears to contradict Labour's commitment to publicly providing care and raises serious concerns about Council's priorities and adherence to party values. How does this Council justify this, and what measures are in place to prevent this from reoccurring? What plans are in place for the Council to have an in-house children's residential service?
Councillor Richard Clark.
Again, thanks for the question, Councillor Thomas. You will be aware that this is the first residential care home that has been developed by Torfaen Council. The current model is our provision that adopts a collaborative approach between us, the residential social landlord, Melin Homes, and Midway Care, and is in keeping with the Welsh Government's policy direction and the elimination of profit from care. I'll explain that a little bit more later. A members' briefing was sent out in relation to the bungalow in June 23, advising of our commitment and our support for the Welsh Government's Eliminate agenda, specifically to do with the bungalow. The rationale for the award of contract is well documented in public, and it went to Cabinet on the 9th of July 2024. And if you haven't been able to read that yet, I do commend you reading that, because it explains the situation quite clearly. We went out to tender. We did have a not-for-profit organisation that did bid. We went out again because it was outside the remit of the contract. It wasn't cost-effective or appropriate. We went out again, and Midway were successful. One of the reasons I suggest that this is in line with the policy is the policy isn't to be implemented in this case until spring of 2027, by which case Midway have assured us that they are working to transfer themselves into a not-for-profit organisation. I commend them for this, because other providers have upped their prices and run away. Midway are embracing the policy and are looking to work to the 2027 date and go as a not-for-profit. If that is not the case, I can assure Councillor Thomas, we will look at the end of the contract of going for a not-for-profit person. On the wider issue of bringing it in-house, this is our first, and the cost at the moment with just one home, it wouldn't be appropriate, especially you've seen in recent Cabinet reports the issues with children's services and finances. We are continually looking to develop. There's two properties we're looking at, I do apologise, at the present moment, one for unaccompanied minors, refugees, and another one such as this bungalow in the Pontypool area. It is my hope and desire that these are where we can around the borough, providing resources for children and youth at home and not many miles away at a greater cost. I hope I haven't gone sort of all around the circles there answering that for you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Alfie Best, question 11, please.
Thank you. In the recent autumn statement, the Chancellor announced a £1.7 billion increase in funding for Wales. This includes £25 million specifically for coal tip safety management. Within Torfaen, we have 175 coal tips, including 6 which classified as Category D, which is the highest risk category. How will this new funding help to prevent potential landslides and ensure our communities are safe?
Councillor Best, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Councillor Best, for your question. We welcome the news that there is reported additional funding from UK Government. It also demonstrates the benefits of a harmonious collaboration between UK and Welsh Labour governments. The anticipated additional funding will be used to safeguard the coal tips most at risk within Torfaen. Welsh Government have categorised each of the tips in Wales A to D in conjunction with the Coal Authority. These categories are based on the condition and risk to the public, giving C and D tips the highest ratings. We have 35 category C and D tips within the borough, which are on both council and private land. The Coal Authority inspects privately owned tips, while the authority inspects and maintains publicly owned tips. Various work has been carried out on the publicly owned tips to improve security and stability, with ongoing maintenance arranged as required following inspections. These inspections are carried out every 3 months on our D tips and every 6 months on our C tips. Alongside this ongoing maintenance, the authority are in process of designing larger scale improvement on the higher rated tips to ensure that we are prepared to act as soon as the funding is made available by the Welsh Government. This funding will also enable the authority to collaborate with the Coal Authority until the white paper is published. Welsh Government intend to create an overseeing authority in relation to all the coal tips in Wales. The details of responsibility are still unclear in this regard, though. However, Torfaen are committed to improving the effect these tips have on our communities in the interim, and we look forward to working with the overseeing authority to continue the work in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Best.
Just to say, just to echo the point made on collaboration between the two governments, this is a concern that the Welsh Labour Government have taken seriously for a long time, so it's reassuring that the new government in Westminster has taken it just as seriously. Here's the next question.
Yes, please.
High indoor carbon dioxide levels have a significant impact on student well-being, productivity and cognitive performance. Between 1,000 and 1,400 parts per million, students experience increased drowsiness and fatigue, with cognitive abilities declining by up to 15%. Above 1,400 parts per million, there's a marked increase in headaches, inability to focus, and cognitive performance can decline by up to 50%. In 2021, the Welsh Government invested in providing CO2 monitors for every classroom in Wales. Can the executive member provide an update on the use and maintenance of these monitors, and where elevated levels are detected, what interventions are taken to improve ventilation?
Councillor Richard Clapp.
Thank you, Councillor Best, for the question. It is an important matter and does concern the indoor air quality and the functioning of both teachers and learners in schools, and the impact on their well-being and performance. Welsh Government's initiative to supply CO2 monitors to the classroom in 2021 was a direct response to the pandemic. You've got me at it now, yeah, exactly, to the pandemic, and a welcome initiative at the time to help manage the spread of the virus. Thankfully, that specific need has passed, but as you say, there are other benefits to ensuring good ventilation. The monitors were left in schools after the control measures for coronavirus were stepped back, and are hard mains wired and maintenance-free, so they are still in schools and still operational. There have been no significant recordings that have been brought to our attention where remedial works have needed to be done. schools were, prior to COVID and post-COVID, managing the need to maintain a healthy environment long before coronavirus arrived on the scene, and taking steps to improve ventilation where necessary. In the main, this is achieved through effective use of natural ventilation, such as doors and windows, and other openings, such as trickle vents on windows to increase airflow. In some cases, they may also use mechanical ventilation, such as fan, to move air in and out of rooms, and of course learners are not always inside, but out in the open as part of the curriculum delivery and break times.
That's great, thank you very much.
Thank you. That takes us to question 13. Councillor Jane Watkins, please.
Thank you. The recent Eston monitoring report praises Torvine's strong focus on improving pupils' attendance and notes the clear strategy that is well understood by its officers and schools. Given the ongoing challenges of the post-pandemic attendance recovery, can the executive member provide an update on the impact of the Not In, Miss Out campaign and the support given to schools to improve pupil attendance? Further, what progress has been made in the increase in school attendance, and how does this compare to national averages and pre-pandemic levels? Thank you.
Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. We as a service are delighted, as we should be as an authority, with the comments from Eston, and equally delighted with the progress made. That said, there is still room for improvement, and we are collectively striving for continued improvement. The NEMO, Not In, Miss Out, campaign continues to be supported and run with relentless enthusiasm. That's a genuine expression too, because I think schools are passionate for this and see the benefit of it within schools. It's not just a service-driven element. The enthusiasm, the importance of celebrating the overwhelming benefits of being in school having a positive impact on attendance. This is reflected in the positive trends we are seeing in secondary, primary school attendance. We are indebted to our schools for supporting the campaign, sharing lots of good news stories and maintaining that momentum. We continue to work closely with schools, offering additional support where it is needed and keeping a sharp focus on attendance. The service itself, in terms of education welfare officers, that service has been restaffed and reallocated to schools, and I think we genuinely are seeing the improvement there with the support that schools are getting. As Eston noted, we have progressed well in terms of accelerating improvement in attendance. In October 2023, Torvine was 16 out of 22 local authorities. In November 2024, Torvine was 6 out of the 22 local authorities, and that position in that top 10 has changed. I believe I have told certain people that we were third. I was hoping I could say that today, but the reality is we are where we are. But there is a minuscule amount, about 1 percentage point, between the top group there, and we will continue to strive to be the best that we can be. And as we have said earlier in this meeting, we have been contacted by other authorities who are looking what we want, that we are doing, to bring them in. So they're obviously going to challenge us for a higher place anyway, wanting to improve. You asked about pre-COVID. We're 1.5% behind where we were pre-COVID. I think it would be a lot worse had we not introduced this scheme. Our next step in improving attendance will need to be a collective effort of officers, schools, and us as elected members working together. Many of us are school governors, and we play a very active role within our communities, even if we're not governors. We need to keep sharing positive messages and the importance of being in school. It really is the case of not in or miss out. And that's not just only academic reasons, it's pastoral care. You know, children getting on with other children, building up those social skills that they need for future life. This is not all about academic qualifications, but onwards and upwards, as they say.
Thank you.
Thank you for that very comprehensive answer.
Question 14, Councillor Nathan Ewell.
Thank you, Chair. So, Welsh Government published a white paper on ending homelessness in Wales over a year ago. Can the executive member provide an update on our position and outline the steps taken to prepare for the introduction of the recommendations? And yes, Richard is catching here.
Thank you, Councillor David Daniel.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Yole. The White Paper has made clear Welsh Government's ambition that homelessness should be preventable, and where it's not, it should be brief, rare and unrepeated. This is an ambition which I fundamentally agree with, and I'm sure everyone else in the room would do. It's also noted that tackling homelessness should be a public service matter rather than a housing service matter. And again, this is something that I fundamentally agree with. To deliver this, Welsh Government are encouraging local authorities to deliver a rapid rehousing model. To a large extent, we're ahead of the game here. Officers in Torfaen are well versed in the rapid rehousing model, having followed many of its principles for many years. And within the next month, we expect Pearl House, just across the road from this chamber, to open, which embodies that new approach. Our swift adoption of additional supported housing units, together with the adoption of a targeted move-on process, is helping to keep us ahead. And consequently, we fully expect that we will be compliant with the new legislation should this be tabled. But the stakes could not be higher for any new legislation. The number of people living in temporary accommodation in Wales has risen dramatically over the past few years. Whilst Torfaen has not been immune to this, we have very much bucked the trend, in large part because we have had the flexibility to innovate and develop an approach which is right for Torfaen. We set out our own allocation policies, meaning that we can get the balance right between those at risk of homelessness and those on our common housing register. And we set out our own policies in relation to supported accommodation. I sincerely hope that the ability to set policy flexibly will be maintained with any new legislation that is adopted, and will continue to press this point with ministers in the Welsh Government. Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to question 15, Councillor Colette Thomas.
Thank you. Recent news articles I have seen have indicated a rise in the number of people placed into hotels and accommodation that is not appropriate for people due to the lack of facilities. We are all aware of the demand for housing and the pressures driving that demand, so can the executive member please reassure members that the individuals who are homeless in Torfaen are provided with accommodation that is suitable for them and provides essential facilities?
Councillor David Daniels.
Thanks, Councillor Thomas. Yeah, I mean, I think the point is clear that the quality of the temporary accommodation that we're providing is absolutely essential. I think it's really key towards helping people be more resilient, because obviously when you're going into temporary accommodation, you're probably at the lowest point of you're at a low point, and I think it's important that that temporary accommodation facilitates recovery from that point rather than perpetuates it. The numbers of people in temporary accommodation in Wales have risen dramatically in the recent years, and as I said to Councillor Yole just now, we in Torfaen are not immune from this. But we've worked as hard to support those at risk of homelessness early to minimise pressures on temporary accommodation. We also have worked very hard to increase the speed at which residents can move on from temporary accommodation into longer-term housing options. As you can imagine, that is no small feat and is our substantive challenge. I want to reassure members that in partnership with registered social landlords, we closely monitor demand for housing, demand for temporary accommodation, move-on times from temporary accommodation, void rates, and the types of accommodation that people are placed in, so that we can really understand the pressures across the system. This close monitoring, coupled with the interventions I've mentioned in my previous response to Councillor Yole, is helping us manage the numbers who are in temporary accommodation in Torfaen. Whilst the position changes every week, at this point in time, we have no residents in hotels and no residents in ad hoc B&Bs in the borough.
Thank you. Okay. Final question, question 16, Councillor Colette Thomas.
Thank you. The Welsh Government has made the commitment to invest in care of looked-after children, ensure they remain close to home, and removing profit from the sector. Following the excellent news of the new residential children's home opening in Cwmbran, could the executive member elaborate on how this facility will help to achieve these goals and create a safe and supportive environment for the children and young people in the care of our local authority?
Okay, Councillor Daniel. Oh, Councillor Richard Clark, apologies.
No, I'm quite happy to have this one because it is a good news story. Thank you for the question, Colette, and can I commend you for your passion and enthusiasm in this area, not only chairing the Children Looked After Corporate Parenting Panel, but your efforts over the years in this specific area is quite honourable and notable. But to answer the question, when children are placed in residential care, they are often placed out of county, as you're aware, making it more difficult for them to maintain contact with family members and friends. An out-of-county move will often result in the child having to move to an alternative school, which is closer to their new home, thereby creating further disruption and separation from their peers and all that is familiar to them. The opening of this provision in Torfaen has provided an opportunity to ensure that children placed in residential care remain in Torfaen, remain close to family, friends, remain in the schools that they're used to with their school friends, and create or continue some form of normality. Whilst the care and support is being delivered by a private provider, the provider, as I referred to earlier, is committed to transferring to a not-to-profit model. Of course they care. Having visited the site, I see how much they actually do care, and the provision that they provide on site. And actually going around the bungalow, which I think a number of us have managed to do, the facility there is absolutely fantastic. It is a family home. It isn't an institution. It's somewhere where a child or young person will feel safe and the same as other children. It's an adapted, it's been adapted to provide a safe, suitable, homely and enjoyable space for children and young people with a range of needs. The home is registered to look after up to 3 children or young people aged between the age of infancy to 18 years old. The site is a therapeutic provision, with the provider working closely with an experienced psychologist, providing monthly clinical supervision to the management team and available to provide consultation for the staffing team. We look forward to developing the model, as I said to Councillor Thomas, and increasing our residential care provision within Torfaen. As I said, having visited, I can only commend it, and I'm certainly reassured that it is a provision that, again, as I said, we would want mirrored throughout the borough and bring our children home.
Thank you for that.
Some of us from the corporate parenting panel did have the opportunity to visit the bungalow, and I think all of us really shared, can you pass on our thanks to everybody involved. It really was truly outstanding, and we felt very proud of Torfaen taking on that facility. Thank you.
Absolutely, I was one of those that visited the bungalow, and it is a superb facility, and really pleased to see that it's welcomed by the community as well. So thank you for that. That ends our questions. Thank you, members, for all those questions. That takes us to agenda item 17, which is the Cabinet decisions of the 5th of the 11th, 2024. Cabinet decisions start on page 255 of the agenda, and for the Council to note. There were no challenges to any of the decisions. Any members wishing to comment or ask a question? Can I ask members whether they agree with the recommendations to note the Cabinet minutes then, please? Are there any members against those recommendations? And any members wishing to abstain? Thank you, they are noted. That leaves us to the last item, which is the date and time of next meeting. For your information, members, the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 17th of December, just before Christmas, at 10 a.m. Thank you for attending this morning.